Thank you so very much for your leadership. And just a couple of questions to start off with. When the Prime Minister of Japan was visiting, and obviously was so well received by the Congress and by the President, when he had his after speech meeting over in the Rayburn Room, I gave him a letter, talked to him briefly, but gave him a letter on behalf of the left behind parents in Japan, those who were left out when The Hague was signed and ratified. My concern has always been, and it was as, you know, that what a cruelty to those families to say, now we're going to get it right, or at least get on the path to getting it right. But meanwhile, all of these other families, like Jeffrey, who's here, Paul Toland, and so many others, are just left out, not being able to see their children, and certainly not having the reunification that is warranted by the law and by, really, universal justice. I gave him the letter. I'm going to put the letter in the record. I'll give you a copy again. We still haven't heard back. And it's troubling in the extreme, you know, with all the diplomatic niceties that he was afforded, and he was very well received, and I deeply respect him as well, that when a very serious set of issues are raised about very real people who are being treated so cruelly, I mean, it's just, you know, they rejoiced when The Hague was signed into law, but it was a very bitter rejoicing because they knew they were left out, grandfathered out rather than in. So I would ask you if you could, with the Prime Minister, with the Japanese government, to reiterate an effort, you know, reignite that effort to get these children home. It baffles my mind. You know, justice delayed is justice denied. There's no statute of limitations on justice, and certainly this injustice and the cruelty of it is just mind-boggling. As my ranking member said, you know, she has no idea how she would handle it. I have no idea how I would handle it as a father of 4 and grandfather of 8 if such a thing were to happen. It was just, it's mind-boggling, not knowing. Even when the nuclear problem occurred, many of our left-behind families were trying to find out, was their child in any way injured or put at risk during that crisis, and it was crickets, nothing. And I just find it appalling. So I would put this letter in the record, but I'd like to, you know, convey to you a copy again and see if you could at least get an answer. My hope the answer will be, hey, let's just do this. You know, I care about the abductions that have occurred big time. I was on Congressman Honda's bill of the abductions that were going to North Korea. Well, abductions is a two-way street. We don't want any abductions. So I appeal to you to take that back. I do hope you can put even more benign pressure on that government to do more now with these cases. They can't be forgotten anymore. Secondly, I wanted to ask you, with regards to the démarche, and you know, we've had démarches, and when I wrote the law, I patterned it after both the International Religious Freedom Act and the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. The idea was that you have a very real sanction, like a sword of Damocles hanging over a country for noncompliance. But we know that when it's not used, the country and the bureaucrats in each respective country say, we can weather a little criticism, but there's nothing that's going to follow. When I was fighting for David Goldman so very, very hard, one of the things that I raised on my many trips was that we're going to look economically to taking away GSP, which you know you need very badly in Brazil. You know, we were serious about, you know, denying them the continuance of generalized system of preferences for their products. All of a sudden, they're all eyes. You know, okay, what do we got to do? Please, you've got economic pressure and other pressure just staring us in the face. That's why we wrote it into the law. 10 years later, blow off the dust. And I appeal to you again, to start demarching, no, start sanctioning countries, and we will see results across the board because they'll say, oh, the Americans mean business now. They're not bluffing. And I do think, despite when your interlocutors, you probably talk to a lot of very good people who care deeply, but they're not making the decision necessarily in country X, Y, or Z. Somebody else is who's saying, you know, just just talk, produce on some things. But again, some of these left behind parents that go on for decades, they need a resolution. So I would ask you, if you could, will you be looking to use the sanctions prescribed in the law going forward?
Thank you, Congressman Smith.
Yes.
Each year, the Office of Children's Issues, the country officers, the branch chiefs, the division chief, me, sit down with our colleagues from the regional bureaus, with our colleagues at embassies and consulates abroad, and we review the list of tools in the Goldman Act to see which ones are going to be effective in trying to address some of the challenges we've seen in individual countries. I can assure you that we look at the entire list, and then beyond that, because in addition to what's in the law, we have other tools at our disposal, not just diplomatic tools, but training and things that raise awareness of the importance of implementing the Hague Convention or finding solutions to individual cases of international parental child abduction. So we do look at the entire list each and every year.
But I would ask, and I would appeal to you, that you've got a very serious sanctions that you could impose. And I believe with all my heart, soul, and mind, not only was I inspired by the trafficking law, which I wrote, but more, that was inspired by our civil rights law. Without sanctions capability, the schools wouldn't have complied the way they do and have to. Sanctions do grab the attention. And when you have countries like Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, India, Jordan, and Peru non-compliant every year since 2015. I met with Modi personally on behalf of a case out of New Jersey. A young woman who had her 2 children abducted, was treated like trash by her now separated husband. He stole from her. The police had reports showing that he was a thief in addition to being an abductor. She went over there and nothing, no help. She was even at risk of court action for trying to see her children. And she's testified here a few times as well. You couldn't find a nicer, more civil, more loving mother who has been absolutely cruelly denied her children. And I brought her to meet with Modi and appealed to him, and nothing happened there either. After a while, you say, these jobs are worthless if you're not willing to help people who are at risk and vulnerable. And so India, one of our great trading partners, allies, we need to do more there as well.
Thank you, and I would agree that India is definitely on one of my top of my list of countries that I've been working on over the past year.
Right, and I have asked before, I'll ask one more time, then yield to my friend, Ms. Wild. Have we tried to get an MOU with India?
We have raised that, but there has been no interest on the side of the Indian government. I think I would note, though, that memorandum of understandings can be helpful in certain instances. For example, we have one that is more operational with Saudi Arabia, which commits both of us to meet on a regular basis to discuss issues. That has been carried out, and that goes on. Other MOUs which have stressed the importance of facilitating parental access to their children, even as the parents seek the return of their child, I would say that's a hit or miss in terms of how we have been able to really use those effectively with the countries involved. So we have to look at it, but we do hold it out as something we will consider.
I would just say, Ms. Kopke, you might want to answer this as well. We sanction India, we will get their attention. I know there will be other people in the department, there will be bureau heads who will say, oh, don't mess up the relationship. Friends don't let friends commit human rights abuses, and these are against American children and American parents. And with impunity, they are telling us to go, there's this, take a long walk on a short pier, that they don't care. And having had these conversations with people directly, including Modi, he needs to step up, and as does his government, the government. So please use the sanction. You sanction, you will get results, I guarantee it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Chairman. The process that Michelle describes in terms of working together with the regional bureaus and the Bureau of Consular Affairs is something that we engage in on an annual basis, and we'll continue to do so to make sure we're using the tools that are going to be the most effective for getting progress on this important set of issues. For both Japan and Korea, These issues, they're different circumstances, but they remain an important part of our bilateral agenda with both countries. We've been raising it at senior levels and kind of all the way up and down our system, and we will continue to do so. I've had recent active conversations with my own counterpart in Japan on this topic, and you mentioned the letter to the Prime Minister and not receiving a response. I will follow up on that with him because, as I said, we are actively discussing this issue as we continue to see progress.
Ms. Wild.
Seem like it's on. Okay. Ms. Bernier-Toth